This is our working definition of validity. If you recall, we established in chapters 1 through 5 that a convincing argument, that is a sound argument, has two requirements. One is, of course, that we tell the truth in the argument, true premises. The other requirement is validity, and this is the definition we are given. Now, if we look at this definition, there are three important features that matter. Of course, premises, true, conclusion, false are important. The other important characteristic is the question of possibility. Chapter 6 provides a way to look at the possibilities of simple arguments to demonstrate how validity works in a far more formal presentation than what we see in chapter 5. And that's the point of chapter 6. The truth table analysis that we work through in chapter 6 is supposed to explore the possibilities for truth and false combinations of premises and conclusion. So, how do we capture those possibilities? For any combination, we can list the various possibilities of these combinations. That is, for any argument, we want to list all the possible combinations of true premises and false premises and true and false conclusions. So, as an example, an argument might have, let's say we've got an argument with two reasons given. How do we map out those possibilities in a way that allows us to determine the validity of the argument? What we can do is we can determine the possibilities per premise, per possibility. So let's say that our first premise has the following combination of possibilities. Our second premise then has the following combination of possibilities. And let's say our conclusion has the following combination of possibilities. Okay, now what we've done here is we have just mapped out all of the possible combinations for true and false within a particular argument. And it doesn't matter what the argument is, as the first few pages of chapter 6 points out. The whole point of this process is to rather divorce ourselves from any content within the argument. That is, we don't care what the argument says, we care about how the argument formally relates within itself of true-false combinations, the true-false relationships among the premises in the argument. So in this case, we refer back to our definition and we ask ourselves, is there a possible combination in which the premises are true and the conclusion false? Is there one combination, one is all it takes, in which this particular circumstance occurs? Well, we can go to our first possibility. True premise, false conclusion. That doesn't meet the determined falsification of our definition of validity. In other words, this is a possibility in which the premises are not all true and the conclusion false. So as far as this possibility goes, we can say that one's okay. That one does not invalidate the argument. Second possibility, again, false premises, both of them, with a true conclusion. That's not mentioned in our definition of validity. And so the second possibility does not in any way suggest an invalid argument. So for our second possibility, we can also say it's okay. Now, if we look at our third possibility, however, what we see are true premises with a false conclusion. That is, our first premise is true, our second premise is true, which meets this part of the definition, and then we see that our conclusion is false, which meets this part of the definition. And here maybe I should label these. So, what do we determine from a possibility in which we have true premises and a false conclusion? Read back to our definition of validity. An argument is valid if and only if it is not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false. In this case, there obviously is a possibility in which the premises are true and the conclusion false. Therefore, we draw the conclusion according to our definition, according to our list of possibilities, that this argument is invalid. Now, do I need to go on? Do I need to check my final possibility? The answer is no. I have found one possible combination of true-false values within this particular argument that shows that there is a possibility of true premises with a false conclusion. That does not meet our definition of validity. Therefore, the argument, whatever the argument is, that denotes these possibilities can be said to be invalid. Now, that's the point of Chapter 6. Chapter 6 examines the formal characteristics of this definition of validity. And recall that validity is the singular formal feature of deduction. When we talk about the deductive characteristics of an argument, we are asking the question of validity. Thus, we are referring to our definition of validity. Chapter 6 shows us one way to apply that definition in a very formal process in order to make that determination. Now, this is the next step after Chapter 5, where we introduced our definition of validity, and then we simply invited you to informally assess the question, okay, can I think of a possibility in which the premises of an argument are true while the conclusion is false? A sort of informal sort of reckoning of what we can think about as far as possible combinations. Chapter 6 moves us from that informal, casual, if you will, assessment to a far more formal, almost robotic approach to this kind of assessment. So in Chapter 6, we're going to discuss how to determine the combinations of true-false for any argument, for any premises in the argument, and for any conclusion. And then we're going to apply our definition to the list of possibilities in order to determine, okay, will this argument meet the definition of validity and thus pass the test for validity? And then, of course, later on in the textbook, we'll move on to the far stickier problem of assessing truth. And that's it.